A good story is incomplete if there's no background relationships between the non-playable aspects of their favorite characters. Relationships can be familial, platonic, romantic, and antagonistic. To emphasize that these characters are living and breathing, it's important to showcase the parts of their lives that don't revolve around the main character. And for that, we will be discussing popular Genshin duos that have canon connections between them. If you think this is a shipping video, you are sorely mistaken. There are no confirmed romantic relationships currently in the game, so I won't be referring to any of the duos as such, regardless of the amount of inconspicuous details. I am simply here to talk about their connections with each other because I think it's great Genshin's characters have existences beyond the Traveler. Also, this is part 1 of the series, so stay tuned for more. Anyway, let's begin. Xingqiu and Chongyun, the prankster and pranksty duo of Liyue.
Ah, dear Chongyun. Though he understands me quite well, one has to exercise caution when teaming up with him to go on a quest. He is making good progress in the martial arts, but I would say he hasn't quite internalized the chivalric code yet. He needs more practice. Especially at eating spicy food.
I do admire Xingqiu for his devotion to chivalry and his martial arts proficiency. However, I must warn you that he definitely has a mean side too. If you find that you fall foul of any of his antics, come to me and we'll form a Victims of Xingqiu alliance. There is strength in numbers.
Their friendship is one of the most popular ones on the board, given Xingqiu appears in 2 of Chongyun's character stories, while Chongyun appears in 1 of Xingqiu's. Their friendship has grown over a long time, and their dynamic is certainly quite amusing. We were never explicitly told when they first met, simply that they met along the way. Given the duo is still relatively young but are both technically working with occupations in their respective fields. To tell their stories, we have the following. Chongyun has had the privilege of meeting a true friend in his long journey as an exorcist, Xingqiu. There are 2 sides to the swashbuckling Xingqiu's personality. While quiet and unassuming in front of strangers, he is gregarious and chatty in the company of close friends and family. Though more restrained than his elder brother, he even has a playful and mischievous side. The one who usually bears the brunt of his bizarre sense of humor is someone named Chongyun, an exorcist usually found on one of the forest trails around Liyue. In contrast to the hard-working Chongyun, Xingqiu was naturally gifted and has a more flexible way of looking at problems. After learning about Chongyun's troubles, Xingqiu came up with a possible solution. If you can't reduce the effects of your yang energy, what if you sought out an evil spirit that is immune to it? This was a eureka moment for Chongyun. Since then, Chongyun has no longer sought to alleviate his condition. Instead, he now tries to get Xingqiu to come with him to find such a spirit. Xingqiu usually just makes these leads up as he goes, and thanks to his advice, Chongyun often comes back empty-handed, blaming his bad luck. We know that Xingqiu and Chongyun care a lot for each other, even though Xingqiu likes pulling pranks on him. Chongyun's sweet yet gullible nature is a great compliment to Xingqiu's well-meaning but jovial pranks that sometimes do get to Chongyun. But you can see in their interactions that they just enjoy each other's presence and have a great trust in one another. The level of trust that Chongyun has for Xingqiu is admirable. And while Xingqiu does seem like he's just pulling Chongyun's leg, we can tell from their interactions that they're good friends.
Oh, many of these are from my friend, Xingqiu. He's well-read and very knowledgeable. Not to mention he's always willing to extend a helping hand. He always provides me with lots of reliable information. If it weren't for my pure yang spirit, I would have already vanquished numerous demons because of him. I'm sure of it. I should find a chance to thank him personally. Xingqiu said he learned the story about evil spirits from an ancient text. The text vividly describes the appearance and even the whereabouts of the spirits.
I was bored with nothing to do, and thought I'd come out this way for a bit of reading. And then I thought, why not bring Chongyun along too?
Yes. I'm just along for the ride, really.
Now, which book to read today? Aha! How about this? Chongyun, pick a book, any book, and read it out loud to me, will you? That way, I can give my mind a rest.
Huh? That's why you brought me along?
Don't like that plan? Okay, then I'll read one for you. How about Young and Hopelessly Smitten?
Xingqiu, don't you think you have one too many frivolous books in your collection?
Of course, not everyone is appreciative of Xingqiu's antics.
I find that Miss Shenhe seems to look at me somewhat fiercely, so I daren't approach her lightly. Bizarre. Did I inadvertently upset her? Or maybe upset someone close to her?
Beidou and Ningguang, the captain of the Crux and the Qianxuan of Liyue. Beidou and Ningguang's friendship and camaraderie seems like it's an obligatory business partnership between the two. However, the more we read into the details from both Ningguang and Beidou's stories, we see that their connection is one of trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Both characters have had difficult childhoods, but grew to be reputable members of Liyuan society. Word has it that the Crux's boss behind the curtains is none other than the Qixing's Qianquan, Ningguang herself. Both of the people involved deny this outright, though they do so for different reasons. As a member of the Qixing, Ningguang often needs someone else to do her dirty work for her. Of the many candidates available, she picked Beidou. Ningguang would emphasize that she picked Beidou, not the Crux. Ningguang's collaboration with the Crux is, therefore, purely incidental. Meanwhile, while Beidou hears the rumors about her dealings with Ningguang, she furiously insists that she collaborates with Ningguang on an equal footing. Beidou is her own boss, and no one, not even Ningguang, is sitting in the background pulling the strings for her. Beidou is certainly quite unique among Ningguang's collaborators. Ningguang's advisors worry constantly that Beidou is too unpredictable and too much of a maverick. But Ningguang simply smiles and dismisses their concerns. To Ningguang, Captain Beidou was the black sheep of Liyue Harbor's business community. As Tianquan, it fell to Ningguang to impose heavy fines on Beidou each time she transgressed the rules. But much to her consternation, Beidou seemed to take these fines in her stride, like water off a duck's back. Outside of the officials, too, Ningguang tried to find ways to implore Beidou to change her ways and stop putting the Qixing in such a difficult position. In response, Beidou simply explained away her actions as enacting justice, helping the poor, and keeping the sailors in their jobs. As a firm believer in the principle of live and let live, Beidou had no time for Ningguang's advice. In the end, Ningguang agreed to disagree and gave up trying to convince the stubborn Beidou to change. While it can be said that Beidou's friendship for Ningguang began as business transactions, the more we meet them, the more they act like bickering old friends that are just exhausted of each other's presence. Neither will admit that they like being with each other, of course, perhaps out of pride, but you can definitely see the way Ningguang trusts Beidou in all of the endeavors. In the 2.4's Archon quest, Ningguang trusted Beidou's fleet to assist with Beish's attack. In the Lantern Rite Festival, the two share light-hearted compliments with each other. And in the 2.5 drinking event, we see that both of them decided to have a vacation together, which would suggest that they like each other's company outside of the offices.
Wait, did you two come together?
Well, this lady decided on a whim that she wanted a little vacation, so we ended up traveling around the area. But I guess we have different ideas of vacation. We hardly hiked the mountains before we came here to put our feet up. Talk about spoiled.
Come now. No need to hurt anyone's feelings. Besides, I specifically chose this place because I knew how much you like to drink.
I know how fierce you can be with words. It's my treat today, so remember to take it easy on me.
All right, then I'd like to have a few more. Perhaps you've never heard me speak like this. All that can be said has been said, both the good and the bad, but she still does as she pleases. Forget it. Keep Beidou out of my sight.
The dynamic of these two lack the jovial naivete of Xingqiu and Chongyun's friendship, but does have the air as though they've known each other for decades. And that's just how it goes if you're trusting of another person. Kaeya and Diluc. The bickering sworn brothers of Mondstadt. Well, according to the original Chinese text, if you read the English localization, it says that Kaeya is Diluc's adoptive brother. According to the wiki, Kaeya used to call Diluc's sworn elder brother. Sworn brothers, in the simplest terms, means brothers who are not related by blood. It also refers to a delicate bond formed between close friends built from trust and honor. In Kaeya's Vision character story, Kaeya is referred to as Yizi, foster son, Creepus is referred to as Yangfu, which is adoptive father, and Kaeya is again referred to as Yangzi, which is adopted son. Simply another tide of localization that was unfortunately non-contextualized in translation. Regardless, though, we can never deny that their connection seeds back a long time ago. Kaeya's father had abandoned him in a strange and unknown land to fulfill this mission, and it was Master Kripus and the city of Mondstadt that had welcomed him with open arms when they found him. Many citizens still remember the two most eye-catching young gentlemen in all of Mondstadt a few years ago. One of them was the dapper Diluc, an elegant swordsman who always had a warm smile and a confident posture. The other was the eccentric Kaeya. He was Diluc's friend, supporter, and sounding board, ensuring he got through every challenge he faced smoothly. They were almost like twins, knowing each other's thoughts and intentions without a word, protecting Mondstadt in both light and dark. Until that fateful day, now ingrained deep in Kaeya's memory, when the convoy that Diluc was escorting was attacked by a huge monster. It was the first and only time that Kaeya failed in his duty. By the time Kaeya finally reached Diluc, it was all over. It was on that night that the two sons' paths diverged. As a brother, he should have shared in Diluc's grief, and yet as their father lay dying on the ground, he had hung back behind his brother, that ancient plot running through his mind. Consumed by guilt, Kaeya knocked on Diluc's door. As the rain poured down, the shroud of secrecy was washed away, and all the lies were revealed. Kaeya had finally come clean. He had anticipated Diluc's anger. The brothers drew their blades, this time pointing them at each other. Kaeya felt that this was a punishment for a lifetime of lies. Since that day, Kaeya and Diluc have gone their separate ways. Their relationship has become relatively tense throughout the encounter, but we do see hints that deep down inside, they still care for each other. They wouldn't dare show weakness around the other brother, of course, acting almost like real-life siblings. But beyond their constant bickering, they do seem to slowly fix their tense friendship.
Diluc? He was cute as a young lad, but nowadays he just seems to be in a world of his own. Overall, not much fun to hang out with.
Oh, and if I did have one too many, what then? You'd throw me out along with the trash, is that it?
Throw you out?
You know, the same way you threw out Father's legacy. You sold off his mansion, or maybe you've forgotten.
I see no reason to cling to things that have outlived their purpose.
Is that so? Then I trust you were most swift indeed to part with a certain vase?
Sorry, I have no recollection.
That's odd. Master Diluc, I'm sure I saw such a vase in your home. A beautiful one, unmistakable in fact.
The vase mentioned in this scene is the same one that Kaeya gave Diluc, which housed his vision. They are at least beyond the part of ignoring each other, and in the manga, we see them share crucial information with each other and work together quite well despite their differences. They do have their ups and downs, more downs than most, but they still retain those sparks of a repairing friendship.
They were all signed Dodo King.
Anyone else find it hard not to crack a smile when Master Diluc says, Dodo King?
Diluc and Kaeya's relationship still holds the tension of the past, and it's still evident that they're both waiting on each other's moves. The trust between them still has cracks from the fight after their father's death. Kaeya's role as a Conrian spy will definitely come into play in the future. And whether Diluc will fight with him or against him will simply be up to fate. Raiden A and Yae Miko. The friendship between A and Yae stemmed from many years ago, perhaps even along the time of the Kitsune Saigu, given that Yae already existed along the time that Raiden Makoto was still alive. The dynamic between the ever-so-elusive fox envoy Yae Miko and the firm yet idealistic A is actually quite fascinating. Firstly, Yae's language of friendship is playful banter tied with dedicated acts of service. To A, Yae is someone that acts suspiciously, but can still be trusted when she has to. And in the story, this aspect of Yae was highlighted greatly with how she asked the traveler to save A.
Locking herself away in the plane of euthymia when she clearly wants to be out. It's just willful self-torture, really. On the other hand, it's also rather stubborn but cute, don't you think? You want to save the people of Inazuma from the Vision Hunt decree. So do I. The only difference is that I'd rather like to save this nation and save A while we're at it. The key is that the plane of euthymia represents A's inner world. Defeat her there, and you may well have the chance to shake the Raiden Shogun's will. You know, A never said goodbye to me before she stepped into the plane of Euthymia. Perhaps it's just my wishful thinking, but I think she did this deliberately, as her way of keeping our friendship eternal. By neither saying goodbye nor seeing me again, our relationship will remain forever how it was. In her mind, at least. Then my duty as her eternal familiar is to drag her back out of her own head and into the real world.
We can see that despite her somewhat harsh exterior, all that she wants to do is to both uphold and guide A to the right path of rulership in Inazuma. In this scene, we see that Yae carries the burden of losing someone she cared for, and in a way, this is her plea for help concealed in false confidence and attitude. Yae Miko still tries her best to support A and correct A's actions to the best of her abilities and for the sake of a friend.
But eternity is far too cruel a fate for you, A.
For me?
Not only have you stopped paying attention to the world, but you have stopped paying attention to yourself. It must have been terribly lonely here, all alone, for centuries on end.
But it is necessary.
This is your plane of Euthymia. It's your inner world. So it can only mean that you are happy to see me again. You have found the loneliness here unbearable for a long time now, haven't you?
I have nothing to say to that.
But I have so much to say to you. Let me tell you all that has happened over the last few centuries.
Miko, I never thought I would have the chance to meet with you like this again. Seeing you again is a change to eternity, and a very nice surprise.
Since you are willing to admit that, I suppose that means we can still be friends?
What a childish conversation this is.
I'm placing my god in your capable hands. For my sake, and for Inazuma's, please. Bring her back. Ahem. Yae Miko said nothing of the sort. And the traveler has some nerve making up spurious claims about her while she is still present. The defeat was a heavy blow to her. It also didn't help that I forgot to bring her some tricolor dango and light novels when I went to see her. Oh, the poor thing. Without desserts and books to console herself with, she was so angry she quite simply lost it. Crying and ranting and raving. Oh, I could hardly bear to see her that way.
And in the end, they still have a surprisingly happy relationship with each other. Yae's carefree behavior and A's somewhat reckless and naive nature really give a breath of fresh air between what might be considered as a god and subordinate relationship. And in turn, A trusted Inazuma in Yae's hands during the 2.5 story quest, and even the Gnosis during their exchange after Kunikuzushi's dismissal. Honestly, it's nice to see A and Yae being so relaxed with one another, given that A's initial introduction through the Raiden Shogun was so rigid. It's nice to see that A's true emotions and Yae's care for her lie behind all of this. Jin and Xinyan. Yunjin's friendship with Xinyan is one of those that are just hinted in the textual lore, but haven't been completely explored in cutscenes besides the one shot in 2.4.
The elders of the troop are always harping on about rock and roll being a bad influence. Needless to say, they never approve of me going to see Xinyan's shows. It's for your own good, they say. All it's really about is their inability to accept anything new. Whatever, those old fogies can't tell me what to do. I'm going to keep rocking out at Xinyan's gigs every week, and that's that.
Tell you a secret, but you gotta keep it that way, you hear? She's real fond of rock and roll. Comes to watch me at least 3 times a week, no matter how packed her schedule is. You'd think that the head of the Huyu Tea House's troupe would be into finer arts and all, huh? But I guess it gets suffocating after a while.
Their story is actually quite fascinating and wholesome when you look at the lore. Yunjin was warned against meeting with Xinyan because Xinyan's style of music was so loud and bombastic. But Yunjin pressed beyond those prejudices and still attended rock and roll performances on end. But the other side of Xinyan, the one who is known to embroider, cook, and clean, was also one that Yunjin appreciated as a friend. Xinyan was even worried that she would push Yunjin away since the aesthetics are so different from her usual rocker style. But much to her surprise, Yunjin appreciates this side of Xinyan as well. According to Yunjin's character stories, the elders are not fond of the rock star Xinyan, but they have taken a shine to Xingyan, the adopted daughter of Fan Erye. I've heard that Xingyan can cook and do embroidery. She must be a polite and accomplished young lady. Yunjin might be able to pick up a thing or two from hanging out with her. How capital! Yunjin has long gotten Fan Erye to agree on the details concerning the made-up Xingyan, so don't worry. No one's gonna call her out on this. Well, at least Yunjin's creative. Albedo and Klee. Albedo and Klee's wholesome relationship is something that is constantly built in the lore, and there's no denying that. According to the stories, Alice, the most powerful sorcerer in Tevat, had a daughter named Klee. Yes, that Klee. We'll be a family from now on. Treat her like a real younger sister. From that day forth, remedying Klee's disasters would come to take up most of Albedo's remaining energy. They entrusted Klee to the care of Albedo and the Knights of Avonius.
Indeed, I view Klee as my younger sister. Whenever she gets herself into some explosive sort of trouble, I can only console myself with the fact that her current destructiveness is nothing compared to that of Miss Alice.
Me and Albedo have a secret code. Whenever he puts a sign on his workshop door saying experiment in progress, that's code for come back later, Klee. Albedo's really nice and he's so patient with me, so I don't mind waiting until he's finished with his work.
Albedo's love for Klee as an older brother never fails to show in the scenes they're together. You can see how Albedo cherishes Klee during the 1.6 event where he helped set up the islands for her, and in the Iridori Festival of 2.6, he acted like Klee's somewhat chaperone in Inazuma. Additionally, Klee, Mona, and Albedo hang out together.
Wow, it's so beautiful here! So many things I've never seen before.
Slow down, Klee. Please be careful not to bump into others. Telling Klee so many stories about Inazuma during the trip was probably not the best idea. As a result, she could hardly sleep all the way here. It appears she's even more excited now that we've arrived.
Albedo's gentle nature and doting brother-sister relationship with Klee is so incredibly wholesome that it almost makes you forget that Albedo has several death flags on him and a ticking time bomb in his lure. Ganyu and Keqing. Out of all the duos that I put in the list, one of the reasons I wanted to put Ganyu and Keqing was because of the development in their friendship from 1.0 all the way to 2.1. It's actually fascinating to see how their story unfolds considering every duo in this video has been quite stagnant since the start of the game. At first, Ganyu and Keqing don't really get along because of their differing opinions about the gods and Rex Lapis.
I cannot stand her disrespectful attitude towards Rex Lapis, but he says to me, Ganyu, this is just the kind of person Liyue needs in this day and age. I guess I'm not smart enough because I simply do not understand what he means by that. I think I need more life experience to become wise enough to comprehend his words.
However, after the fight with Docile and the teamwork executed by the Adepti and the Liyue Qixing, Ganyu and Keqing grew a better understanding of one another's ideologies when it came to divinity and humanity.
I find myself getting a second opinion from her a lot these days. Lots of things come up that I just have no idea about. And of everyone in Liyue, she's probably the most familiar with Rex Lapis. I feel a bit awkward though, because I used to be openly disparaging of Rex Lapis in front of her. But she doesn't seem to mind, so I guess I've got nothing to worry about.
She came to me recently to discuss the reopening of the Bishui trade route. She even asked me what Rex Lapis would do if it were him. Admittedly, what we came up with was not quite on par with what he would have chosen. But seeing the way she kept starting her plan from scratch over and over again, I think I started to understand her a little bit.
Afterwards, their friendship and understanding of each other continued to grow, with Ganyu explaining their relationship as almost sister-like, so much so that they thank other people for taking care of the other.
If Ganyu has a secret and she wishes to keep it that way, nobody should make it their business to try and get it out of her. That's just basic decency, is it not?
Thank you. You're so kind and considerate. I've always seen that in you.
What's that got to do with... Honestly. Go on, you should be getting back now.
Ganyu is an assiduous worker. apt to foregoing food and rest once she is busy. Please make sure she eats and sleeps properly whenever you see her.
I will. Ganyu has always been a great asset to us. Her health is a priority, so I will take good care of her.
I think we need more relationships in the game that have a form of development instead of simply staying one way for the continuation of the story. I think the polarizing difference between Ganyu and Keqing's friendship from the beginning and then now in the present time is so fascinating because it's an actual development. So Keqing and Ganyu's friendship in cutscene shows us the potential that Genshin can have developing friendships. Tao and Zhongli. I wanted to end this video with a dynamic that I personally appreciate. Tao and Zhongli's somewhat parental guardian but also professional business partners motif is a weird combination of dynamics that you'd think shouldn't work. But when you add Zhongli's existence as a god and Tao as a cunning but well-meaning and determined woman, you see the deeper respect they hold for each other's capabilities, despite the childishness that Tao possesses, of course.
The current overseer of the funeral parlor? I cannot deal with that child.
Zhongli looks young, but his personality's a bit dusty. Knows everything, but doesn't fret over anything. Couldn't be that he's, Forget it, whatever.
According to their character stories, we see that despite Zhongli's annoyance, his character story refers to Tao as a friend. For the various ceremonies sending a Deptai off, Tao usually employs the help of a friend in more or less the same business. That person's name is Zhongli. Of all the lecturers, Zhongli is the most revered one. As such, his lessons have proven to be the most effective in cultivating the competence of Wangsheng Funeral Parlor's undertakers. Despite often being teased by Tao due to his old-fashioned style, he is also the person that she trusts the most. Apart from that, Tao always instructs her undertakers to respect their clients' wishes and not insist any particular form of funeral. And when we see their interactions, we see that Tao and Zhongli do retain their cordial conversations.
It is the consummate mastery of this balance that turns a humble dish into an exquisite one.
Oh, that's quite the compliment, don't you think?
I'm flattered. Thank you, Mr. Zhongli.
And I thought I have a way with words. But you certainly take the prize, Mr. Zhongli.
You are too kind, Director. Your eloquence is infamous in Liyue Harbor.
The god and mortal dynamic between the two is really nice to see, especially since Tao has the higher position. Regardless, I want to see this dynamic cultivate further in the series, given we're getting more moments with Zhongli integrating his mortal persona and his background duties to those he cares for. Maybe Zhongli will also have a moment where he'll save Tao in the background like a guardian. Or maybe Tao gets confirmation that her worker is in fact Liyue's god. But yes, that's it for today. I just wanted to start off the series with some popular ones, and then slowly dive into obscurity with connections that you think are very unlikely. But regardless, my name is Aster and thank you for chilling with me.